The waitress took the mafia boss's coat by mistake 48 minutes later. 3 cars were outside. The smell of stale coffee and fried grease is a perfume I can never quite wash off. It clings to my hair, my clothes, my skin, at 3 in the morning, with Port Harrington shrouded in a cold sea mist. The Harbor Light Diner is a lonely lighthouse for insomniacs and ghosts. I was wiping down the chrome counter, my feet aching in my worn-out sneakers, when Tito yelled from the back. It was not a yell of anger, but the sharp, breathless sound of pure panic. "Fire, Lila, the fryer!" I did not stop to think. I spun, vaulted the low pass-through, and saw it, a volcano of yellow flame and black smoke erupting from the deep fryer. Tito was beating at it with a wet towel, making it worse. Grease fires feed on desperation. "Back off," I shouted, grabbing the silver fire extinguisher. It hissed, but the chemical cloud seemed to feed the flames rather than choke them. The smoke was thick, burning my lungs. We needed to get out. "The back door. Tito, go." He scrambled out. I looked toward the front. The booths were empty save for one man in the corner, nursing an espresso. He was always here, late, watching the harbor. Quiet. Expensive suit. Eyes that missed nothing. He had left his coat draped over the hook by the door. The smoke alarm shrieked, a piercing, unbearable sound. I ran for the front door, coughing, my eyes streaming. I needed something, anything, to cover my mouth. I grabbed the coat off the hook as I fled into the alley. It was not my thin jacket. This thing was heavy, impossibly soft, made of charcoal cashmere that felt like solid shadow. I buried my face in it, gulping the cold, salty air, the fabric smelling faintly of amber and ozone. I did not know it belonged to Emilio DiCarlo. I did not know that name meant anything more than a generous tipper. I did not know he was the civilized monster who ran the Orpheus Syndicate. I just knew I had a grease fire to explain to the fire department. 48 minutes after my shift officially ended, after the fire was out and the insurance questions were asked, I was climbing the stairs to my 3rd-floor walk-up. The cashmere coat was still draped over my shoulders. A heavy, stolen comfort. My own jacket was ash. I would figure out how to return this one tomorrow. My apartment was small, old, but mine. The second I shut the door and bolted the 3 locks, I let the coat slide off my arms. It pooled on my cheap linoleum floor like a dark stain. I stared at it. This coat cost more than my next 6 months' rent. I bent to pick it up, intending to hang it carefully. My fingers brushed the inside pocket. It was empty, but as I smoothed the lapel, I felt a slight thickness in the hem, right along the bottom seam, a stiffness that did not belong in cashmere this fine. My curiosity, a fatal flaw of mine, took over. I found the loose thread. I pulled. A small, neat incision opened in the stitching. Tucked inside was a folded piece of heavy cream cardstock. I unfolded it. There was no message, no numbers, just a single elegant handwritten symbol, the Greek letter omega. Behind it, nestled deep in the wool, was something else. It was no bigger than my thumbnail, wafer-thin and cold to the touch, a USB drive. A cold dread, sharper than the harbor wind, washed over me. This was not a forgotten item. This was a hidden one. That was when I heard the engines. Not the usual rumble of the late-night bus or a passing truck. This was the synchronized, high-torque purr of multiple, expensive engines, cutting off at the exact same moment. I moved to my window, the one overlooking the street, and peered through the blinds. 3 dark cars. They were parked in a fan formation, blocking the entire street, their noses pointed at my building's entrance. One was a Kestrel SUV, matte black, its aggressive lines screaming military grade, the Kestrel outfit. Even I knew that name. Jonas Rook, the man who rivaled DiCarlo, the brute to DiCarlo's surgical precision. The second car was an unfamiliar sedan, windows blacked out. The third was a low-slung hardtop coupe, but the license plate looked wrong. Too clean, like a prop from a movie. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was not a coincidence. I ran to the entryway, my hand hovering over the intercom button to buzz Tito, who lived on the first floor. I pressed it. Nothing. No static, no click, just dead silence. The line was cut. I backed away from the door, my breath catching. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, lit by the flickering fluorescent bulb, but something was wrong. On the brick wall opposite my door, something new. A spray-painted symbol, still dripping, a stark, black silhouette of a hawk in flight. The Kestrel outfit had just tagged my building. They were marking their territory. They were marking me. My ancient beige rotary phone on the wall suddenly shrieked. The sound was so violent in the silence that I jumped, a small cry escaping my lips. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. A beat of silence. My cell phone, sitting on the counter, vibrated. The screen was dark. Unknown number. I answered, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Hello? Lila Navarro. The voice was female, impossibly calm, with no trace of an accent. It was the voice of someone looking at a spreadsheet. You are on the 3rd floor, apartment 3B. Do not open your door. Do not answer the intercom. That coat isn't yours. Who is this? How did you get this number? My name is Maya Kincaid. I am the head of Mr. DeCarlo's security. He would like his property returned. I just grabbed it. There was a fire. We are aware. The voice cut me off, still perfectly placid. Mr. DeCarlo's property is now compromised, and so, unfortunately, are you... I scrambled back to the front window, my cell phone slick with sweat in my grip. I looked down at the street again. The men were out of the cars now. They were not thugs. They moved like soldiers, in coordinated patterns, covering angles I did not even know existed. 3 teams spreading out, one to the front, one to the alley, one covering the fire escape, a pincer triangle. It was a harbor blockade, a maneuver used to trap ships in the bay. They were trapping me. I was backing away from the window, my mind racing, when a sound came from the other window, the one that led to the rusted fire escape. Tap, tap, tap. 3 sharp, distinct knocks, not on the door, but on the glass. I froze. No one used that fire escape. It was unstable. I turned, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. A man was standing there, backlit by the sick yellow sodium vapor lamp from the street. He was just a silhouette, but I knew that silhouette. It was him, the man from the diner, Emilio DeCarlo. He was immaculate, even on a rusted fire escape 3 stories up. He was not looking at me, but down. At the alley, he saw the men moving into position, then he looked up, and his eyes met mine through the dirty glass. He was not angry. He was not panicked. He was calculating. He raised his right hand, gloved in dark leather. He made a small, precise gesture in the air. It was not a wave. It was a signal for a blind spot, aimed at a rooftop I could not see. He was telling a sniper where not to shoot. He was telling them he was exposed. Survival, raw and immediate, kicked in. I was not a player. I was the game board. I ripped the cheap plastic case off my cell phone. With trembling fingers, I jammed the wafer-thin USB drive between the phone and the case, snapping it back on. It fit. I took the small cardstock note, the one with the omega, folded it twice, and slid it deep into the rolled hem of my wool sweater. My eyes darted to the ceiling, the small, square hatch that led to the roof. Tito and I used it to watch the 4th of July fireworks. My hand was on the rusted metal latch, ready to pull, ready to run. The night exploded. A deafening screech of tires from the street below, far louder than the others. It was followed by the sound of an engine pushed to its absolute limit, and then a catastrophic, echoing crash of shattering glass and twisting metal. I stumbled back to the front window. The unknown sedan, the 3rd car, had not been part of the Kestrel team. It had just driven, at full speed, directly through the plate glass doors of my apartment building's lobby. Men were shouting. The orderly, silent siege was broken. the hallway outside my door filled with the sound of running feet. The war had begun, and I was holding the prize. The night air was sharp with the smell of cordite and burning tires. I stood on the rusted fire escape, a ghost in a bespoke suit, watching the chaos I had spent a month planning to avoid. The sedan that had crashed the lobby was now a burning wreck. Amateurs. Jonas Rook, for all his brutality, was not an amateur. This was a third party, a random variable, drawn by the scent of opportunity. This entire operation, months of careful maneuvering, had been derailed by the one thing my organization could not control: random, stupid chance, a grease fire. And the girl, Lila Navarro. My coat, the charcoal cashmere, was meant to be a simple handoff, a dead drop. My terrified contact at the Port Authority was supposed to find it in the booth after I left. He would retrieve the contents, replace them with his own, and leave. It was clean. It was anonymous. But the girl, the waitress with the tired eyes and the scent of coffee grounds, had run out with it. Maya's voice was ice in my earpiece, cutting through the sirens. "Sir, Port Authority camera, feed 4B. We have visual confirmation. She left the diner wearing it at 3:02 a.m. 48 minutes. She had been in possession of the coat for 48 minutes, long enough to be curious, long enough to find what was hidden. That coat was not a garment, it was a vault. Sewn into the reinforced hem was the Neo Ledger, a complete, encrypted copy of every dirty dollar Jonas Rook had laundered through the breakwater terminal for the last 18 months. It was my leverage, my endgame. And the USB drive. The USB was the executioner's blade. Rook did not care about the ledger. He wanted the USB. It held two things. First, the Keel 9 activation code, a digital skeleton key that accessed his shadow inventory in the container yard. But second, and infinitely worse, was the audio file. A 60-second recording of Rook finalizing a deal with Commissioner Stone of the Atlantic Integrity Commission. It was the sound of the city's highest watchdog taking a 7-figure bribe. It was a recording that would send them both to a federal prison for the rest of their natural lives. Rook would not just kill her for it. He would dismantle her, piece by piece. Just to be sure. "Maya," I said, my voice low, ignoring the pop of gunfire from the lobby. "The lobby is a kill box. The Kestrels are pinned, but the third team is flanking the alley. Where is our asset?" "Still in apartment 3B. Panicked, but stationary." "The roof. She'll try the roof. Seal it." "Negative, sir." Maya's reply was clipped. "Kestrel has the rooftop exit covered. They beat us to it." I processed. A new strategy formed instantly. Fine. Change of plans, clean corridor, cut the power to the alley lights. I want that fire escape dark. Funnel them. Force Rook's men to use the main stairwell. Is the static trap in place? "Affirmative," Maya said. "Second floor landing. They breach that door. They get a full dose of non-lethal, but it will only buy us seconds." I watched the window of apartment 3B. I could see her shadow moving frantically. A moth trapped in a jar. She was surrounded. Rook's men below. Rook's men above. And me on the fire escape. She had no idea what she was truly holding. The Omega note. It was not for her. It was the confirmation for my real informant, my deeply buried source inside the Atlantic Integrity Commission itself. The meeting was set for tomorrow. Without that note, my source would stay buried, and the audio file on the USB would be just another piece of inadmissible trash. My phone vibrated in my breast pocket, a secure alert from Maya. She had patched into the girl's cell feed. She was on another call. I listened. The voice was not Maya's. It was male, digitally altered, a robotic rasp. "Lila Navarro, you have something that belongs to a lot of people." I heard her shaky breath. "Who is this?" A friend of the Sparrow. The hawks are circling. Little bird. They want the key. I just want a copy. Meet me at the old shipyard. Come alone. I can guarantee your safety." My blood went cold. colder than the mist coming off the harbor. Sparrow. For 2 years, Sparrow had been a ghost in my system, an anonymous entity dropping critical intel about Port Harrington's shipping manifests, union kickbacks, and lubrication fees. Sparrow was the reason I knew where Kestrel was vulnerable. Sparrow was the reason I had the leverage in the first place. The intel was always clean, always accurate, always delivered in a way that protected the source. I had hunted for Sparrow. I had assumed it was a disgruntled port official, a high-level clerk, maybe even Stone's own aide. I never, for 1 second, considered it was the waitress who refilled my espresso every night, the one with the quick, intelligent eyes she always tried to hide behind a mask of exhaustion. Was it possible was this quiet girl, who smelled like bleach and cheap coffee, the most dangerous informant in the entire city, or was she just a civilian who stumbled into the line of fire, and this friend of the Sparrow was a fourth player trying to intercept the asset? I did not believe in coincidence. I looked at her shadow through the glass. She was not Sparrow. She could not be. It was a setup. And yet, the way she had moved in the diner, the way she had handled the fire, it was not panic. It was control. The gunfire below intensified. The Kestrel team had neutralized the third car and was now preparing to breach the building properly. They were coming up. "Maya," I ordered. "Status on the roof team." "Still in place, sir. A news helicopter is approaching from the east. Channel 9. They must have picked up the shots fired." This was escalating. Public. Rook would get desperate. I saw the hatch in her ceiling rattle. She was going for it. She was choosing the roof, choosing to face Rook's men rather than the unknown in the hallway. "She's moving to the roof, sir. Rook's team will have her in 10 seconds. I moved. I stepped from the fire escape, balancing on the thin brick ledge of the window. I tapped the glass again, harder this time. 3 sharp raps. She froze, her hand on the latch. She turned. Her eyes were wide, pupils blown with terror, but beneath the terror, I saw it, defiance. She was cornered, but she was not broken. She was exactly the kind of person Rook loved to destroy. The chop of the helicopter blades grew louder, washing the building in a harsh, sweeping spotlight. It passed over us, catching me in its glare. My sniper was compromised. Rook's sniper would see me. I had 1 move left. Slowly, deliberately, I stripped the fine leather glove from my right hand. I held my bare hand up to the glass, palm open and offering a truce. Her eyes locked on mine. She could see my face clearly now. The man from the diner, the man whose coat she stole, the man who brought this storm to her door. Behind her, I heard the heavy thud of boots on the stairs, followed by a muffled roar as Maya's trap on the 2nd floor deployed. It would not hold them for long. "From the roof," a man shouted. They knew she was there. The helicopter's spotlight swung back. I was fully illuminated, a perfect target on the side of the building. I did not move. I held her gaze. I was offering her the one thing no one else would, a choice. "Come with me," I said, my voice too low for the microphones to catch, but she read my lips through the dirty glass. "Or take your chances with them." I watched her, the waitress, the ghost, the Sparrow. Her gaze flickered to the roof latch, then to the splintering wood of her apartment door, then back to my hand. She made her choice. The jump from the fire escape was a blur of cold air and scraping metal. Emilio's hand, the one he had held up bare, was not gentle. It was iron. He did not pull me. He anchored me. We moved down the rattling stairs in a controlled fall, the sounds of the fight in the lobby, shouts, the wet, heavy thud of impacts seeming to happen in another world. An alley door burst open, and the woman from the phone, Maya, was there. She was a silhouette against the chaos. She did not speak, just yanked the door wider and pushed me into the back of a car that felt less like a vehicle and more like a bank vault. The door closed with a heavy, pressurized thunk, sealing out the world, the sirens, the shouting, the gunfire. All of it faded to a dull, distant drumbeat. I was in the back of an armored Maybach. It smelled wrong, not like a car. It smelled like rich leather, ozone from the electronics, and him, amber and sea wind. I was shivering, the adrenaline turning to ice water in my veins. He was sitting opposite me, not next to me in the rear-facing seat, just watching. His presence was so large it seemed to consume all the air in the cabin. He reached into a compartment I had not seen, pulled out a coat, not the coat, but another one, heavy wool, midnight blue. He did not hand it to me. He tossed it onto my lap. "Put it on," he ordered. It was not a request. I fumbled with it, my fingers numb. I wrapped it around my shoulders. It was warm from the car's heater, and the scent, that same impossible mix of expensive amber and clean, cold sea, was overwhelming. It settled over me, and against my will, my frantic, shallow breathing began to slow. I hated that. I hated him for it. I found my voice. It was shaky, but it was angry. "You have to let me out. Now, this has nothing to do with me." I clutched the wool coat tighter. "I'm a waitress. I work at the diner. I grabbed your coat by mistake. That is all." Emilio DiCarlo leaned forward. The faint city lights of Port Harrington sliding over the planes of his face were the only illumination. His eyes were dark, unreadable. It no longer matters what is. It only matters what Jonas Rook believes. He spoke quietly, but his voice filled the armored space, vibrating in my bones. He believes you are involved. He believes you have something of his, and that is more than enough to get you killed. You stopped being just a waitress the moment you ran out that door with my property. The woman, Maya, was in the front passenger seat, turned to face us through the open partition. A tablet glowed in her hands. "The asset is secure," she said, presumably into a hidden microphone. Then she looked at me, her eyes as flat and gray as the harbor water. "Lila Navarro, you are now a high-priority liability." "Maya," Emilio said. It was just one word, but it held a sharp warning. Maya ignored him, her focus entirely on me. "What you took is not just a coat. It contains a USB drive and a coded note." I instinctively touched the hem of my sweater, where the stiff cardstock of the Omega note was hidden. I prayed they could not see the movement. My cell phone, with the USB drive nested in its case, felt like a block of ice in my pocket. "That USB," Maya continued, tapping her screen, "contains 2 items of interest. First, a complete shipping manifest and route map for Kestrel's unauthorized movements at the Breakwater terminal." I just stared. This was insane. This was the stuff of movies, not my life. "Second, and more importantly," Maya said, "a high-definition drone video, time-stamped. It shows Jonas Rook exchanging payment with Commissioner Stone of the Atlantic Integrity Commission." The name hit me, but it was the next part that stopped my breath. "The file is triple encrypted," Maya said, "and stamped with a unique digital signature, a Sparrow key." My heart stopped. It literally stopped, then kicked back with a painful, suffocating jolt. Sparrow? I knew that name. I had seen that name. 6 months ago, working a miserable temp job translating shipping documents at a small logistics office on the wharf. I had seen an internal IT memo, a red flag warning about data leaks. It mentioned anonymous emails, attempts to access the manifest ledger. The IT guy had laughed about it over stale donuts, calling the phantom source Sparrow. I had not just seen it, I was it. My reaction was physical, involuntary, a small, sharp gasp of air. My hand flew to my mouth, a gesture I could not control. I felt the blood drain from my face, the warmth of the cabin suddenly useless. Emilio DiCarlo, who had been watching the blurred city lights, snapped his head toward me. He had not missed it. His eyes narrowed, and the detached calm was gone. In its place was a sudden, terrifying intensity, a predator that has just identified its prey. He had seen it, the flicker of recognition. He did not say a word, but I saw the connection being made, the calculation. He was looking at me, but he was seeing something else entirely. He was seeing the friend of the Sparrow who had called my phone. He was seeing the waitress who just happened to be at the diner every night. He was seeing the girl who knew how to read ciphers. Before he could speak, before he could accuse me, Maya's tablet chimed. Not a phone call, but an incoming video feed. "Sir?" she said, her voice suddenly tight. "It's Rook. He's patching through an open channel." Emilio tore his eyes from me and nodded. "On speaker." The screen lit up. Jonas Rook's face filled the car. He was all broken cartilage and smiling teeth. He looked like a shark that had learned to walk. He was outdoors, the wind whipping his hair, the sound of gulls and water behind him. "DeCarlo," he grinned, his voice tinny. "Nice night for a fire. I see you picked up your package. I picked one up, too." The camera angle shifted, and my world ended. Tito. He was on his knees, on the wet, splintered wood of a pier. His old Harbor Light diner apron was still tied around his waist. His hands were bound behind him. His face was bruised, and a strip of silver duct tape covered his mouth, his muffled groans of terror audible even over the wind. "No," I whispered. The sound was ripped from my throat. I lunged forward, grabbing the tablet. "Tito! Oh God, Tito!" Rook laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "She's there perfect. Saves me the trouble of explaining. Hello, Lila. Glad you could join us." Emilio's hand gently but firmly removed the tablet from my grasp. He held it steady. "What do you want, Jonas?" "The trade is simple," Rook said, his good mood vanishing, replaced by cold business. "You have my ledger, you have my key, I have her. Well, I have her daddy. Seems like a fair swap." "The terms," Emilio said, his voice flat. "Pier 13, Rook snapped. "Before sunrise. That gives you 90 minutes. You bring me the girl. She brings me the original coat, and she brings me my USB drive. You try anything. Anything. DeCarlo. And the old man takes a swim he won't come back from." The screen went black. I was hyperventilating, the amber-scented coat feeling like a shroud. He has Tito. He has Tito because of me. We have to go." "We will do nothing," Emilio said, and his voice quiet. I stared at him, my mind unable to process the words. "What?" "It's a trap. You are the asset. He doesn't want the coat. He wants you. He suspects you are Sparrow. He gets you. He gets the USB. And he still kills Tito to send a message." "So that's it," I shouted, my voice cracking, tears of rage and fear blurring my vision. "You just let him die because I'm an asset." "Tito is an acceptable loss," Maya said coolly from the front seat. "The mission is to secure the data and the source." I looked at her, then at Emilio. "He's not an acceptable loss. He's my family. He took me in when I had nothing. He's Tito." Emilio was watching me, his face a mask. "I will not trade my leverage. I will not trade you." "You're not trading me," I said, my voice dropping, the panic solidifying into a cold, hard stone of certainty. "I'm going, and you're going to help me." He raised an eyebrow. "Am I?" "Yes, because if you don't, I walk out of this car right now. I'll scream. I'll run. I'll find Rook myself. And I'll tell him everything. I'll tell him what I know. I'll tell him about Stone. I'll tell him about the Sparrow key. I will make such a mess that your leverage, your mission, and me, we all go up in flames, but Tito will die. He will die because of me, and I will not let that happen." We were locked in a stalemate. The air in the car was so thick I could barely breathe. Emilio DeCarlo stared at me for a full 10 seconds. I saw something move in his eyes, respect, annoyance, and something else. He had based his entire plan on logic, and I had just thrown raw, desperate emotion onto the chessboard. He finally gave a slow nod. "Maya." Maya sighed, the first human sound I'd heard from her. She turned back to her tablet. "It's high risk. Pier 13 is a kill zone. Open on 3 sides, water on the 4th. "But," Emilio said, "it has infrastructure. What's underneath?" Maya's fingers flew. Storm drains, large bore, from the old city grid. They empty out directly under the main pilings. Emilio looked at me. "You will go, but you will go my way." He turned to Maya. 2-tier plan. I want a diversion team. Loud, visible, on the main pier road. Draw their eyes. The primary team. We go through the drains. We come up from below." He looked back at me. his gaze pinning me to the seat. "You will do exactly as I say. You will wear a wire, and you will give me the USB and the Omega note. Now." I met his stare. "You get the note. The USB stays with me until I see Tito. That's the deal." I thought he would argue. I thought he would threaten me. Instead, a very small, very dangerous smile touched the corner of his mouth. "As you wish, Sparrow." Pier 13 was not a place. It was a cold, metal graveyard waiting for a burial. The mist was so thick it beaded on my skin, and it tasted like rust and dead fish. We came up from the storm drain, climbing a slick iron ladder that opened into the blackness beneath the pier itself. The only sound was the cold, hollow lap of the harbor water against the pilings. Emilio moved like a panther, a shadow detaching itself from other shadows. Maya was right behind me, her presence a silent, coiled threat. She touched my back, a single, firm push, guiding me toward the gap between two massive concrete supports. "You are visible in 3 seconds." Her voice, a whisper of ice, came through the tiny earpiece she had jammed into my ear. "He sees only you. We are in the blind spot behind the number 4 crane. Walk slowly. Do not look at us. Do not run." I stepped out from under the pier. The world went silent. The only light came from the massive Kestrel floodlights, mounted on their line of parked SUVs, which formed a steel barricade at the entrance to the pier. The beams cut through the fog, sweeping back and forth like restless prison searchlights. And there he was. Jonas Rook stood on top of a stack of shipping containers, a dark figure against the gray, pre-dawn sky. He was lit from below, which twisted his features into a demonic mask. When he saw me, he smiled. It was a scar, a cut, a wound opening in his face. "Well, well, well," his voice boomed, unnaturally loud over a portable speaker system. "The little bird, the waitress, come to play with the big boys." I clutched the charcoal cashmere coat to my chest. It was the original coat, or so it appeared, in the frantic, terrifying minutes in the back of the Maybach. Maya had produced an identical one. She had sliced the hem of this decoy, mimicking the damage I had done, and then restitched it. It was a perfect empty prop. The real USB drive, the one that could burn down the city, was not in the coat. It was not in my pocket. Emilio had watched with cold fury as I had pulled back my hair, my hands shaking, and twisted the simple black elastic band around it, the tiny, wafer-thin drive nestled securely within the fabric, a place. I had reasoned that a man like Jonas Rook would never think to look. "Oh, where is he?" I shouted, my voice sounding thin and small in the vast, open space. "Where is Tito?" "Patience," Rook crooned. He snapped his fingers. 2 of his men, silhouettes against the headlights, dragged a figure from behind one of the SUVs. "No," I breathed. It was Tito, and he was on his knees, his old diner apron still tied around his waist, covered in grease and now mud. The duct tape was still plastered across his mouth. They shoved him forward, and he fell, his knees scraping hard on the gritty asphalt. He made a muffled, terrified sound, his eyes wide, pleading with me. "The trade, little bird," Jonas shouted down, his good humor evaporating. "The coat, the drive, throw them where I can see them, then you get the old man." "Send him halfway," I called out, my voice gaining a sliver of strength. "I'll meet him." Rook considered this. He looked down at me, then at the empty space, then at Emilio, who he knew was hiding somewhere in the blackness. "Fine. But you come alone. You move him. You die. She moves. She dies. Everybody dies. Push him." His men shoved Tito another 20 feet into the no-man's land between us, then aimed their weapons at him. "Now you," Rook commanded. My heart felt like it was trying to beat its way out of my chest. I walked forward, the damp cold seeping through my sneakers. When I was 10 feet from Tito, I stopped. I held out the cashmere coat. "The drive," Jonas barked. I reached into the pocket of my jeans and pulled out the decoy, a cheap plastic USB drive The kind you get at a drugstore. It was all part of Maya's plan. I laid the cashmere coat on the ground. I placed the plastic drive on top of it. Then I backed away. My hands raised. Your turn. One of Rook's men scrambled forward, snatched the coat and the drive, and ran back, never taking his eyes off me. He tied them to a rope lowered from the container. Jonas pulled them up. I started moving toward Tito, my hands still out. Tito, it's okay, I'm here. Above me, the scene played out in horrifying silence. Jonas grabbed the coat. He plunged his hand into the pockets. Empty. He ripped at the hem, his fingers tearing at the threads. Empty. His head snapped up. The theatrical smile was gone, replaced by a mask of pure, murderous rage. It's empty, he roared. He pulled a handgun from the back of his waistband and aimed it, not at Tito, but straight at my heart. You lying. He gave a sharp, cutting motion with his free hand to the men holding Tito. Break the deal. Kill the old man. Time stopped. The two men raised their guns. Tito closed his eyes. Jonas? Emilio's voice. It came from my left, from the deep shadows of the crane. He stepped out, his hands empty, raised to his shoulders. He was a perfect target. Every gun on the pier, including Jonas's, swiveled to him. You're looking in the wrong place, Emilio said, his voice calm, conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. He was holding a small, silver box, a high-end data case. You want the Keel 9 codes? You want the audio file of you and Stone? This is it, the real one. Jonas stared, his gun moving from Emilio to me and back again. A trick. No trick, Emilio said. Your men are clumsy. My intel is clean. You want it. He did not wait for an answer. Catch. He threw it, not at Jonas, who was 20 feet in the air. He threw it underhand, a hard, fast skim across the wet asphalt. The small silver box clattered to a stop directly beside a humming, wheeled cart parked at the base of the container stack, a mobile server rack bristling with antennas and thick cables. Jonas's eyes followed the box. He looked at me. A liability. He looked at Tito, a piece of trash. He looked at Emilio, his rival. And then he looked at the drive, the key to his entire empire, sitting 10 feet from his server. Greed won. Get it, he screamed at a man near the cart. Plug it in, verify it now. The tech scrambled, snatched the silver box, flipped it open, and jammed the new, much more professional-looking USB drive into a port on the server. He's in, Maya's voice whispered, so close in my ear it made me jump. On top of the container, Jonas was looking at a handheld tablet, his furious scowl turned to a look of confusion. What is... It's not loading. What is it? The man by the server stared at his screen in horror. Sir, I can't... It's... The entire bank of steady green lights on the server rack flashed red, all at once. Then they went dark. The system is frozen, the tech shrieked, yanking the drive out as if it were on fire. It's a worm. It's locking our own ledgers. It's wiping. It's wiping everything. Jonas looked up, his face a perfect picture of dawning, apocalyptic realization. Emilio had not given him the key. He had given him a suicide pill. Now, Emilio said, his voice low. Maya, from her hiding spot, did not move, but somewhere out in the black, silent harbor, a switch was thrown. The world went white. A blinding, terrible beam of light, the searchlight from a massive tugboat Maya had positioned in the channel, blasted the pier. It was aimed directly at the container stack, catching Jonas and his men in a pure, agonizing blast of white. The mist itself seemed to catch fire. Men screamed, dropping their weapons, their hands flying to their seared eyes. Jonas roared, firing his gun, but he was firing blind, the bullets pinging harmlessly off the crane. The pier, which had been in a frozen standoff, exploded into motion. Emilio's team, 6 of them, moved from the shadows. They were not firing guns, and they were using tasers, fists, and zip ties. The combat was brutal, fast, and almost silent. It was not a firefight, it was an abduction. Emilio was already moving. He sprinted across the open space. not to me, but to Tito. He had a knife in his hand. In one fluid motion, he sliced the tape on Tito's mouth and the plastic ties on his wrists. He hauled the terrified, coughing man to his feet. "Go to the crane," he bellowed, shoving Tito towards safety. "Lila, move," he yelled at me. I was paralyzed, the white light burning spots into my vision. A shape stumbled out of the glare, one of Rook's men, his eyes streaming, his gun held loosely. He saw my silhouette, raised the weapon. I did not think, I just did. The free self-defense classes at St. Jude's, Father Michael, a former Marine, patiently teaching us leverage and pain. The man grabbed my shoulder. I did not pull away. I stepped into him. Inside his reach, I hooked my left arm under his elbow, slammed my right palm onto his wrist, and dropped my body weight. I heard a wet, sickening pop. He screamed, a high, thin sound. The gun clattered from his useless fingers. I twisted, using his own momentum to spin him around and drop him to his knees. I kicked the gun, sending it skittering across the pier and into the dark water. I stood there, panting, my entire body humming. The smell of sulfur from a smoke grenade, mixed with the salt, filled my lungs. The blinding light from the tugboat cut out, plunging the pier back into a disorienting darkness, lit only by the sparks hissing from the fried Kestrel server. The fight was over. It had taken less than 30 seconds. Tito was safe, coughing and sobbing behind the crane, flanked by 2 of Emilio's men. Jonas Rook was gone, vanished from the top of the container. "Maya, exit route," Emilio snapped, pulling me into the shadows. "Clear," she replied, stepping out from behind a winch. "But he's running. He took the service bridge toward the old fish market." "Let him go," Emilio said, his voice curt. "We have the asset. We have the civilian. We're done." "Emilio?" Rook's voice. It was full of rage, echoing from the darkness of the bridge. "This is not over." Emilio ignored him, pushing me and Tito toward the service ladder back to the storm drain. "You think you won," Jonas screamed, his voice already fading. "You won nothing. You want to know who your real enemy is. Ask your new girlfriend, ask the Sparrow." Emilio froze, his hand on my back. "If it was not for the girl, you never would have found Stone." Rook's voice was a last, venomous parting shot. "She played you both, you idiot." Emilio went rigid. He turned his head, slowly, and looked at me. He was not looking at the girl he had rescued. He was looking at the woman who had just disarmed one of Rook's men. He was looking at the woman Jonas Rook had just named. He was looking at Sparrow, and his eyes were full of a new, cold and terrible suspicion. I could feel the real USB drive, tangled in my hair, like a spider made of ice. The ride back was silent. Not the sealed, pressurized silence of the Maybach, but a raw, hollow silence that filled the back of a black panel van. Tito was beside me, wrapped in a shock blanket, staring at his own hands. Emilio sat opposite us, his face carved from stone, his eyes never leaving me. Rook's last words hung in the air, thick and toxic. If it was not for the girl, you never would have found Stone. We did not go back to the city. The van wound its way up the cliffs north of Port Harrington to the Mariner Spire. It was a sterile, glass tower that stabbed the clouds, a monument to money I could not even comprehend. The penthouse was not a home. It was a fortress disguised as a magazine cover. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city bleeding into the harbor, a carpet of distant, indifferent lights. Maya secured the elevator, her team sweeping the rooms with cold efficiency. Tito was led away by a man in a medic's jacket who spoke to him in a low, soothing voice. And then I was alone with Emilio. The adrenaline from the pier, the spike of the fight, was gone, in its place. A deep, cellular tremor began. My hands started to shake, a violent, uncontrollable rattling. It was not the cold. The apartment was perfectly climate-controlled. It was the crash. It was the realization of what I had done, what I had seen. I wrapped my arms around myself, but it did not help. Emilio watched me for a long moment. He said nothing about Rook, Nothing about Sparrow. He simply walked to a kitchen that was all black marble and stainless steel, opened a cabinet, and took down 2 heavy ceramic mugs. He moved with an economy of motion, opening a high-tech refrigerator, pouring rich, dark milk into a saucepan. He added shavings from a dark block of chocolate, a dash of something from a small bottle. He did not use a mix. He made it from scratch, whisking it over a low, blue flame. The scent of real chocolate, dark and slightly bitter, filled the air, a bizarrely domestic counterpoint to the sterile, tactical energy of the apartment. He poured the steaming liquid into the 2 mugs and brought one to me. I was huddled on a white leather sofa that probably cost more than my apartment building. My hands were shaking too badly to take it. He placed the mug on the low glass table in front of me. He took his own and cradled it, breathing in the steam. "It's a habit," he said, his voice quiet, stripped of the command it held on the pier. "It gets the smell of gunpowder out of the throat." I stared at the mug, cocoa. Like I was a child, I felt a sudden, hot surge of anger. Is that what I am to you? A problem to be soothed? A civilian you have to manage? He took a slow sip. "No." "Then what?" I demanded, the tremor in my hands moving to my voice. "Rook was right, wasn't he? You think I played you? You think I set this all up? You think I'm—" I could not say the name. "I think," he said, setting his mug down with a precise click, "that you are the most dangerous person I have met in 10 years. I looked up, startled. "I think," he continued, his eyes finding mine and holding them, "that for 2 years I have been hunting a ghost who knew the port better than I did, a ghost who was smarter than Rook and cleaner than Stone." He leaned forward, not threateningly, but intensely. "I changed my entire operation because of that ghost. I stopped bribing officials. I stopped moving product through unregulated channels. I started building legitimate businesses, using corporate law, using rules." "Why?" I whispered, my shaking starting to subside, replaced by a cold dread. "Because Sparrow," he said, and my heart hitched, "was exposing the rot, and I realized the only way to survive a purge is to not be dirty. The only way to fight a man like Rook was to let his filth be the only filth left to see." He held my gaze. "You asked me who I think you are. I think you are the person who made me change my business, the person who forced me to get cleaner so someone else's dirt would show." My throat was dry. I don't know what you're talking about." He smiled, a thin, humorless expression. "Your hands have stopped shaking. Lila." I looked down. He was right. Before I could answer, Maya stepped into the room. She held a tablet. Her face was grim. "Sir, we have a problem. This just came through official channels. It's a summons from the Commission on Maritime Integrity." Emilio turned to her, his focus instant. "Stone. He's making a move." "He's preempting us," Maya said, tapping the screen. "It's a closed door, emergency hearing. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., they are summoning you to present any and all evidence pertaining to malfeasance at the breakwater terminal. They are calling our bluff." "It's a trap," Emilio said. "He'll have the room stacked. He'll discredit the evidence, bury it under executive privilege, and paint me as a rival mob boss trying to frame him. He'll burn the USB and the ledger as fruit of a poisonous tree." "He's not just calling your bluff, sir," Maya said, her voice grave. "He's calling hers." My cell phone, which Maya's team had returned to me, buzzed on the glass table. It was not a call. It was a text from an unknown, blocked number. I opened it. The message was one line the sparrow shouldn't sing before the storm. I went cold. That was the phrase. The friend of the sparrow. But that was not the worst part. Below the text was an image. It was a photograph of me. I was standing right here, in this room, huddled on this sofa, my back to the window. It had been taken in the last 5 minutes, from a building across the harbor, through a high-powered lens. They were watching us. Right now. I turned my head to the vast wall of glass, to the millions of lights of the city below. We were not in a fortress. We were in a glass cage. Emilio saw my face. He saw the phone. He took it from my hand. His eyes scanned the message, then the photo. A muscle in his jaw jumped. Maya! His voice was lethal, a quiet, deadly hiss. Full tactical lockdown. Shutters on every window. Kill the external lights. I want our counter-sniper team sweeping every rooftop from here to the wharf. Find that lens. Find the man holding it. Yes, sir, she said, and vanished. Heavy metal shutters began to descend with a low hydraulic hum, sealing us in, one by one, turning the penthouse from a viewport into a tomb. Emilio stood in the center of the room, staring at my phone. They knew you were here. They knew you were with me. I can't, I whispered, the shaking returning. I can't be this person. I looked at him, my voice pleading. I am a liability. I am the reason you're trapped. That summons? Rook's men? This photo? I'm just getting in your way. You should let me go. I'll disappear. Disappear where? Lila, he said, his voice soft but brutal. There is nowhere on this continent Jonas Rook or Commissioner Stone cannot find you now. You are not a liability. You are the entire game. The door opened. It was Tito. He was holding 2 cups of water, his hand steady. The medic was gone. The boss man is right, Mia, he said, walking over. He handed me a glass. His eyes were clear. He had seen men like Rook before. He had survived. I heard them. The men in the hall. He looked at Emilio, then at me. I have watched you for 5 years. Lila, you hide, you watch, you listen, you think no one sees you. But I see you. You see everything. You see the bruised wife who comes in at 2 a.m. You see the port worker who got his check docked. You see the cop who takes the free coffee and the extra donuts. You see it all. He put a hand on my shoulder. Now, you are seen, and you have a choice. It is a terrible choice, but it is the only one left. He looked me straight in the eye. You can hide behind this man. He nodded at Emilio. And be his protected thing for as long as he can keep you safe. You can be the liability. Or you can step up and stand with the man who just risked his entire operation, his life, to pull your padrino off a wet pier. He squeezed my shoulder. They think you are a weapon. He nodded at Emilio, thinks you are a prize. What do you think you are? He took his empty glass and walked out, leaving the words hanging in the shuttered darkness. I was silent for a full minute. The only sound was the hum of the air circulation. I stood up. I untangled the elastic band from my hair. The USB drive fell into my palm, cold and heavy with significance. I held it out to Emilio, not to his hand, but to his chest. He did not take it. I'm going to that hearing, I said. My voice was not shaking. He looked from the drive to my face. They want evidence. I said, they want a witness. I will be that witness. I will not say my name. I will not say that name. But I will sit behind that screen. I will confirm the data chain. I will tell them, anonymously, how the manifests were altered, how the shipping routes were diverted, and how the digital signatures on that video file are authentic. I was not asking his permission. I was telling him the plan. He looked at me, and his face was a war. I saw the calculating boss, the strategist, furious that I was taking control, but I saw something else, too, something I had not seen before, a flash of raw, undisguised pride, so quickly masked it was almost invisible, and beneath it, something deeper, fear, not for his plan, but for me. Lila, he said, and my name on his lips was a warning. If you walk into that room, if you testify, there is no going back. Ever. You will stop being a waitress. You will stop being a ghost. You will be the one thing they both have to destroy to survive. You will be invisible no more. I know, I said, my hand still holding the drive between us. They took my apartment and they took my job. They took my anonymity. They are not taking my choice. He looked at my hand, at the drive, and then back at my eyes. He did not take it. He slowly, deliberately, closed his own hand over mine. his fingers engulfing my fist, trapping the drive, his thumb resting on my pulse point. His skin was warm. It was the first time we had truly touched. Then we go together. The night before the hearing was a suffocating, pressurized silence. The metal shutters in the penthouse were sealed, turning the sweeping view of Port Harrington into a blank, steel wall. I could not sleep. I could not even sit. My skin felt wrong, humming with a vibration that was part terror, part a strange, cold resolve. I needed air. I found a door I had not noticed, set back from the main living area. It led to a small, recessed balcony, a carve-out in the building's glass facade that was shielded from the wind and, presumably, a sniper's lens. I slid the heavy glass door open. The sound of the city was gone, replaced by the rush of wind and water. It was raining, not a cold, biting drizzle, but a thick, warm rain, smelling of the deep ocean, the sound of the waves crashing against the cliffs. Hundreds of feet below was a slow, steady heartbeat in the dark. I stepped out, letting the fine mist instantly dampen my hair and clothes. I gripped the cold metal railing, my knuckles white. Tomorrow, in just a few hours, I would walk into that room. I would stop being a ghost. A sound behind me. I did not jump. I knew it was him. I turned. Emilio stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the dim interior light. He was just watching me. He held a thick, dry towel in one hand. He walked onto the balcony, the damp air muffling his footsteps. He did not toss the towel or drape it over me. He just held it out. My hands were still gripping the rail. I let go, one hand at a time, to take it, as my fingers brushed the soft cotton. His hand moved, not to release the towel, but to gently close around my wrist. His fingertips were warm, slightly rough. He was not grabbing me. He was just holding. His thumb moved deliberately, brushing over the raw, red scratch on my forearm from the man I had flipped on the pier. The touch was impossibly gentle. It was not sexual. It was not even possessive. It was an acknowledgement, a silent promise. It sent a jolt straight up my arm, a heat that had nothing to do with the warm rain. I did not pull away. "I used to be a translator," I said, the words spilling out into the dark, pulled from me by the rain and his touch. He did not speak, just watched me, his thumb still a warm presence on my skin. A part-time job at a small logistics firm on the wharf. That's how Sparrow started. I had to tell him. He had to know it was not a game. I was translating freight manifests, customs declarations. I saw the numbers that did not add up. And then I saw them. Kestrel's men. The memory was still sharp, still tasting of fear. They would corner the dock workers, the older ones, the ones with families. They were not just taking bribes. They were forcing them into debt, signing their paychecks over, signing their houses away as collateral on loans they could never repay. I watched Jonas Rook's men break a man's hand because he was short $20. 20. My voice cracked. I took a breath, the salty air stinging my lungs. I could not stop them. I was just a temp, but I could watch. I started copying things, a misfiled invoice, a photo of a license plate. I left a cheap audio recorder in a break room and I got lucky. I finally looked up at him. I just started leaking it, sending it to auditors, to the Port Authority, to anyone. I thought someone would finally see. I never thought. "I saw," he said. His voice was a low rumble, barely audible over the waves. "I saw the pattern. At first, I thought it was a rival, trying to destabilize the port, but the data was clean. It was just true." He let go of my wrist, but only to take the towel and gently, impersonally, drape it over my soaked hair. "You want the truth, Lila." When I first found out Sparrow existed, I was buying port officials. I was paying kickbacks. It was the cost of business. It was how men like me and Rook fought. He used brutality. I used a ledger. He turned to look out at the rain, his profile hard against the dark sky. Then you started. You exposed two of my best contacts. You got a shipping lane I used shut down for an audit. You were not targeting me. You were just cleaning the board, and you were doing it better than I was." He turned back to me. So I stopped. I stopped the bribes. I stopped the kickbacks. I moved all my assets into legitimate holdings. I started fighting Jonas Rook with contracts, with maritime law, with his own bad bookkeeping. "You," he said, and he took a step closer, "gave me the tools. You gave me the one weapon I did not know how to use, the truth." We stood there, less than a foot apart. The air between us was electric, humming with the confessions, with the roar of the ocean. Our breathing seemed to fill the small space, his heartbeat, my heartbeat, the thrum of the waves below. They all merged into one single, accelerating rhythm. I looked up into his eyes. I had always seen power there, calculation, the cold assessment of a predator. But I did not see that now. I saw something else, something hotter and far more dangerous: restraint. He was holding himself in check, his hands clenched at his sides. He was giving me the choice. And I was so tired of being scared. I was the one who moved. I rose on my toes, just slightly. My hand, the one not holding the towel, came up and rested on his chest, over his heart. It was hammering. His eyes closed. The kiss was slow. It was not a collision. It was a discovery. It was voluntary. It was equal. His lips were firm, tasting of the dark cocoa he had made hours ago, and that taste mixed with the salty tang of the rain on my own lips. It was a question, and I answered by pressing closer. A low sound, half groan, half sigh, came from his throat. His hands, which had been rigid at his sides, came up. One hand slid around my waist, pulling me against him. The other moved to the small of my back, fingers splayed, holding me, anchoring me. The heat of his palms soaked through my damp clothes instantly. The towel dropped from my hair, landing softly on the wet balcony floor. The kiss deepened, the restraint breaking. It was not gentle anymore. It was hungry. It was the release of every minute of terror from the diner, every second of fear on the pier, every ounce of adrenaline. His hand in my hair, his mouth claiming mine. It was too much. It was too fast. I was losing my footing, not just on the balcony, but inside myself. My hand, the one on his chest, slid up, my fingers gripping his wrist, tight. Nah, it was not a push. It was a plea. "Slow down." He froze. Instantly, the bruising pressure of his mouth softened. The hand on my back did not release, but its grip gentled. He broke the kiss, but did not pull away. He rested his forehead against mine. We were both breathing hard, our breath misting in the small space between us. "I'm scared," I whispered, the admission torn from me. His eyes opened, inches from mine. "I'm here," he rasped, his voice thick. It was not a comfort. It was a fact. He was here. A beat of silence passed, just the sound of the rain and our breathing. The languages of fear, of power, of violence gave way. This was something else. This was trust. His coat was soaked. My shirt was plastered to my skin. The expensive wool jacket he had given me in the car, which I was still wearing, slid from my shoulders, forgotten, landing in a wet heap on a rattan chair. He kept his forehead against mine, his hand still warm on my back. He led me, like that, back inside. We did not go to a bedroom. We went to the wide, deep sofa in the shuttered living room. He sat and pulled me down, not onto his lap, but beside him. He didn't not let me go. He just shifted, pulling me against his side, turning me to face him. He reached for a cashmere throw blanket and draped it over us both, enclosing us in a small, warm tent of our own. And then he kissed me again. Long, slow, lingering kisses that held no demands. They were just reassurance. My hand found his, and our fingers laced together. My other hand rested on his chest again, feeling the steady, solid rhythm returning to his heart, calming my own. The violent tremor in my limbs had finally stopped. chased away by the solid warmth of his body. We lay like that for a long time, tangled together on the sofa, the blanket drawn up to our chins. The kisses grew softer, fewer, until we were just lying there, breathing in sync, his hand holding mine, my head tucked under his chin. The fear was still there, a cold stone in my stomach. The hearing was still hours away, but I was not alone. Just as I felt the heavy pull of exhaustion, the first true pull of sleep I had felt in 2 days, I heard his voice, a low rumble in his chest, right against my ear. "Tomorrow," he said. "You lead. I'll just be there." The hearing room in the Commission on Maritime Integrity was a pressurized box. It was all old, dark wood, smelling of floor wax and stale air. The chairs were hard oak, designed for discomfort. This was not a place for justice. It was a place for procedural burials. I sat behind a flimsy, beige fabric screen, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles ached. A small, black device sat on the table in front of me, a microphone that scrubbed my voice of all identity, turning it into a flat, metallic rasp. Across the room, Commissioner Halcyon presided. He looked like a man carved from driftwood, his face a map of tired integrity. And beside him, radiating a bored, insulated calm, sat Commissioner Stone. Emilio was at the witness table, flanked by Maya and a thin, sharp lawyer who looked like he billed by the second. Emilio himself appeared relaxed, his suit immaculate. He was the picture of civic cooperation. "The Commission recognizes the presence of Mr. Emilio DiCarlo," Halcyon said, his voice weary, "and witness Alpha." "Well, Mr. DiCarlo," his lawyer began, "is here to voluntarily submit evidence pertaining to the Commission's inquiry into the Breakwater Terminal, specifically a neo-ledger detailing illicit movements by the Kestrel outfit." He placed the USB drive, a perfect air-gapped copy of the one I had pulled from my hair, now stripped of Maya's traps, on the table. Stone's lawyer, a plump, red-faced man, was on his feet instantly. "This is a farce, Commissioner. You cannot seriously entertain this. This is a theatrical maneuver by a known organized crime figure. Mr. DiCarlo's reputation precedes him. He's attempting to use the Commission as a weapon against a business rival. This evidence is inadmissible. It is the very definition of fruit of a poisonous tree." The room murmured. Halcyon looked troubled. "The sourcing is problematic." Maya leaned forward, placing a tablet on the overhead projector. "The sourcing of the USB is Mr. DiCarlo's. The correlating data is not." An image flashed onto the wall screen, a high-resolution satellite photo. "Breakwater Terminal, October 2nd, 0400 hours, Maya said, her voice flat and cold. "The official port manifest, which we have, lists container 601 as textiles. The ledger on the USB lists it as unregistered pharmaceuticals. As you can see from the infrared, the container is running hot. Textiles do not." She clicked. A new image. This is the Kestrel shift roster, acquired independently, cross-referenced with the Port Authority's own security logs for that night. The men who signed for that container, using forged credentials, are known associates of Mr. Jonas Rook. The official port employees scheduled for that shift were all marked absent. We have interviewed 2 of them. They were paid $5,000 apiece to stay home. Stone's lawyer sputtered, but Halcyon raised a hand. The silence in the room was heavy. It was broken by a man I had not noticed, sitting in the back row. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. He was listed as a special investigator for the Commission. "Commissioner, I must object to this entire line of inquiry," he shouted, slapping his hand on the table. "This is a coordinated fabrication, Mr. DiCarlo is playing this room, feeding you curated data to eliminate his competition." My blood froze. The digital filter on the phone call was gone, but the voice, the cadence, the sharp, arrogant edge, the precise rhythm of the words, it was him. It was the man who had called me, the friend of the sparrow, the man who sent the text. The sparrow shouldn't sing before the storm. He was not just a third party, He was Stone's man, inside the commission itself. He was the one who had sent the photo of me in the penthouse. He was here. Before I knew what I was doing, I spoke. Commissioner Halcyon. My voice came out as a robotic squawk. I request permission to speak directly. Witness Alpha, Halcyon said, frowning. Your anonymity is guaranteed for your own protection. I waive it. I stood up. I grabbed the edge of the flimsy fabric screen and ripped it sideways. The metal frame clattered to the floor. The room went completely silent. Every eye locked on me. Stone's bored expression vanished, replaced by a sharp, sudden focus. The investigator's mouth hung open. Emilio turned in his chair. He looked at me. His face was pure granite, impassive, but his eyes were burning. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. You lead. My name does not matter, I said, my voice shaking. But it was my voice, and it was clear. But my methodology does... You are arguing about the source of the drive. You are arguing about Mr. DeCarlo. You should be looking at the process. I walked toward the main table, my footsteps echoing. You want to know if the data is real, I will tell you how it was gathered. Not by Mr. DeCarlo, by me. Stone's lawyer started, For 2 years, I cut him off. I have tracked the digital manifests, Kestrel Logistics files ghost invoices, always at 2:59 a.m., just before the port servers reset for the day. They use container numbers that are flagged as in transit, but are physically sitting in Yard C. I can give you the 57 container numbers I have personally tracked. I can give you the docking times, which never match the pilot's logs. I can show you how the declared tonnage on the manifests is always exactly 20% less than the weight recorded at the automated scales. This is not a fabrication. It is arithmetic. I did not say Sparrow. I did not mention bribes or kickbacks. I just gave them the clean, cold, undeniable mechanics of the theft. Stone, who had regained his composure, watched me with a tight, reptilian smile. I was just a clerk to him, a smart clerk, but one he could crush. Halcyon, however, was studying the notes in front of him. Witness. The data on this drive, which you are now authenticating, mentions a repeated outflow, a transfer to a corporate entity called the Blue Current Fund. Are you aware of this? Stone's smile did not waver, but his hand, which had been resting on the table, suddenly gripped his pen, a single, sharp, involuntary clench. He flinched. He knew the name. I am, I said, my eyes locking on Stone. The money did not just stop with Kestrel. It had to be cleaned. The Blue Current Fund was the washing machine. The double doors at the back of the room burst open with a crash, splintering the frame. Jonas Rook stood there, flanked by 3 of his men. He was wearing a suit, but he looked like a wolf in a cage. He held a document aloft. This hearing is concluded, he bellowed. I have a temporary stay order from Harbor Court. All proceedings are halted. All evidence is to be seized by my legal team pending review. He was coming for the USB. He was coming for me. Lock the door, Maya, Emilio said, not even turning around. Maya was already moving. She did not go for the door. She hit a heavy brass fire alarm on the wall, a silent trigger, and simultaneously threw the massive deadbolt on the inside of the main door. The thunk echoed in the room. Rook and his men were locked in with us. Get that drive, Rook roared at his men. They lunged. The room exploded into chaos. Halcyon was shouting. Stone was backing away toward a side wall. One of Rook's men tried to vault the table. Emilio met him. He did not throw a punch. He simply rose from his chair, blocking the man's path, grabbing the lapels of his suit and using his own momentum to slam him backward into the solid oak witness stand. The wood cracked. The man crumpled. The second man tried to get around the table. Maya intercepted him. It was brutally efficient. A palm heel strike to the nose, a low kick to the side of the knee. The man went down, howling, clutching his face. The third man, and Rook himself, were now fixated on the table, on the laptop, on the USB drive. The evidence, Rook scrambled, shoving his own lawyer aside. But I was already there. The USB was still plugged into the laptop connected to the projector. The Kestrel rotes were still on the screen. My fingers flew. It was the one piece of the puzzle Emilio had given me, the one code he had held back, Keel 9. I typed the command, I hit enter. The map of the shipping lanes on the projector screen vanished. It was replaced by something else, a flow chart, a simple, undeniable diagram of money. It started with the Kestrel outfit's known accounts. It showed the arrows, the transfers, the routing through 3 offshore shell companies, and then it showed all 3 arrows converging, landing in one single domestic account, the Blue Current Fund. And next to that fund, fed directly from the Commission's own personnel database, was a name and a photograph. Commissioner Stone. The fight stopped. Rook froze. His hand inches from the drive. Emilio's man was groaning on the floor. Every single person in the room stared at the screen. Stone was no longer calm. He was ashen. He looked like a man who had just swallowed glass. Halcyon rose to his feet, his face a mask of thunderous rage. He looked at the screen. He looked at Stone. "This hearing," he said, his voice shaking with fury, "is suspended. Seal the record. I want all materials impounded. Officers," he yelled at the doors, which were now rattling as security, summoned by Maya, tried to get in. Place Commissioner Stone under temporary arrest. Rook saw it was over. The trap had failed. He was not going to get the drive. He was not going to get me. As Maya unbolted the door and armed commission security flooded in, Rook did not look at Stone. He looked at Emilio. He backed away, a feral snarl on his face. "This is not a win, DeCarlo," he bellowed, his voice echoing off the wood. "You think these paper pushers run this city? You think these rules matter?" He pointed a thick finger, not at Emilio, but at the whole room. "The backyard belongs to me, not the court." And in the chaos of Stone being cuffed, Jonas Rook slipped through a side exit and was gone. The victory in the hearing room was a hot, sharp rush of adrenaline that lasted exactly as long as it took to get to the parking garage. The air was cold, smelling of damp concrete and exhaust. We were walking toward the elevator bank, the sterile lights humming overhead. Emilio was beside me, his hand a warm, solid presence on the small of my back. And then he stopped. He did not slow down. He just stopped, rigid. His hand tightened on my back. I looked at him, and his head was tilted, his gaze fixed on the empty, oil-stained slot where our armored van was supposed to be. "Where is Maya?" I asked, my voice suddenly thin. She'd been right behind us. She had held the door. She was gone. Emilio was already moving, not toward the empty slot, but toward the massive concrete pillar at the garage exit. His pace was controlled, a predator's stalk. There, scrawled in thick, greasy white chalk, was the message. It was not a note. It was a declaration. Person for person, sea glass overlook, before dawn. Jonas. He had not fled. He had hunted. He had lost the legal battle. So he had reverted to the only language he truly understood. He had taken Maya. Emilio's fury was a terrifying thing. It was not loud. It was a vacuum. All the warmth, all the reluctant pride from the hearing room vanished. He became a block of ice. I go alone. We were back in the penthouse, the metal shutters sealed, the room a tactical box. Tito was safely in a back room, guarded. "No," I said. I stood between him and the door, where his men were waiting with a black duffel bag. "Lila, get out of my way. This is not a discussion. This is my family, my responsibility." "She is your family," I agreed, my voice shaking but firm. "But she stood in that hearing room. She took a bullet from that man on the pier for us. She did not run. She did not hide. And we are not going to trade her for anything." I took a breath. "You want to go, fine. I am going with you. You said I lead. This is the way." He stared at me, his jaw so tight I thought it would crack. I was defying the boss, the predator. But I was not an asset anymore. I was not a liability. He had said it himself. I was his partner. The standoff lasted 5 seconds. He broke it, not with anger, but with a curt nod. "Fine," he snapped. He turned to his remaining team. "We adjust. The plan is now 3-tiered. He was all business, the transition seamless. First, misinformation. I want a leak. Now. I want every reporter in Port Harrington to get an anonymous tip that the original Keel 9 USB, the one presented in the hearing, was a copy, the real one. The master file was just logged into evidence at the Harbor Court Federal Vault. I saw the genius of it. It made Jonas desperate. It meant that even if he killed Maya, he still lost. It made me the only remaining loose end who knew the full truth. Second, Emilio continued, pointing to a map of the cliffs. Water rescue. I want a submersible team, silent drive, in the water below the overlook. Not for assault, for retrieval. If she goes over, they catch her. Third, he said, tapping the duffel bag, signal jammers, high band. Rook likes to talk. I want him deaf. We go. Sea Glass Overlook was the highest point on the coastal road. It was a tourist trap by day, a lonely, windswept promontory by night. The wind howled, ripping the salt spray from the waves 400 feet below and lashing it across the pavement. The few remaining sodium street lamps flickered, casting a sick, rhythmic pulse of light. They were there. A single Kestrel SUV, parked sideways, its headlights illuminating the center of the overlook. Jonas Rook stood by the low stone railing, the wind tearing at his suit jacket. He was not smiling. And Maya? She was on her knees, her hands bound behind her. She was inches from the edge. One push, and she would be gone, dashed on the white-flecked rocks below. She was looking at us, her face bruised but defiant. "You came," Jonas bellowed, his voice hoarse against the wind. "The loving couple here to save your pet soldier." Emilio stepped out of the car, his hands empty, visible. I stepped out with him. "You lost, Jonas," Emilio called out. "Stone is in custody. The drive is in federal lockup. It's over." Rook laughed, a raw, barking sound. "Over. It's over when I say it is. You think your little data file matters. You think the court matters this." He gestured to the cliff. "The roaring ocean is the only court that matters, and I am the judge." I stepped forward, past Emilio. "Emilio's right, Jonas. You lost. The drive is gone. Your money is gone. Stone is gone." "Shut up," he screamed. You did this." "I did," I said, walking slowly into the headlight beams, my hands also empty. "But you are looking for the wrong thing. You do not want the USB. That's just data. You want this." I reached into the pocket of my jeans. Emilio tensed, but I had shown him. I pulled out the small, cream-colored cardstock, the Omega. Rook squinted. "What is that A dinner invitation?" "It's the meat schedule," I lied, blending the truth. "The one from the coat. It's not just Stone. It's your other partners. Jonas, the ones in the commission, the friend of the Sparrow. The ones who are going to cut you loose and pin everything on you now that Stone is gone." I held it up. "This is your only leverage left, and I am giving it to you. Let her go." I offered him the note. Jonas stared at the small piece of paper. He stared at me. He looked at Maya, then at Emilio, and then he started to laugh. It was not a sound of humor. It was the sound of a cable snapping. "Leverage," he spat. "I do not need a schedule. Sparrow, I do not need leverage." He pointed a thick, trembling finger at me. "I need her." His face twisted into a mask of pure, nihilistic rage. "But first," he snarled at the two men holding Maya, "the payment for my trouble. Throw her." It happened in a fraction of a second. The men grabbed Maya, hauling her up to heave her over the low wall. Emilio moved. He was not a man. He was a projectile. He crossed the 20 feet in a blur, launching himself, not at the men, but at Maya, grabbing her jacket, her arm, anything, his body acting as a human anchor. But the momentum was too much. The two men shoved, hard. Emilio, with his arms full of Maya, stumbled, his feet sliding on the wet stone. He was going over. Both of them, they were tipping, a terrible, slow-motion pivot over the abyss. I did not scream. I acted. My eyes darted, seeking a tool, a weapon. Bolted to the stone of the overlook was a thick, coiled mooring rope, a relic from when the spot was a lighthouse station. It was heavy, stiff with salt and age. I did not try to pull them. There was no time. I grabbed the free end of the rope, braced my feet against the foundation of a rusted viewing telescope, and used the rope as a lever. I shoved it, hard, a horizontal battering ram, straight into the back of the knees of the man closest to the edge. He folded, his legs buckled, and he went down, taking his partner with him. The push on Emilio vanished. He used that single, stolen instant. With a guttural roar that was torn from his chest, he reversed his momentum, yanking Maya backward with all his strength. They collapsed onto the wet pavement, rolling away from the deadly edge, tangled in a heap of limbs. Jonas Rook screamed. It was a sound of pure, animalistic frustration. His plan, his revenge, his last act of defiance, stolen from him. He raised his handgun, his hands shaking, not with fear, but with rage. He aimed it, not at Emilio, but at me. I was the one who had stopped him. I saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Click. A flat, dead, metallic sound. He stared at the gun, his face a mask of confusion. He pulled the trigger again. Click. The salt spray, the wind, and the fine, high-grade silicone grease Maya had squirted into the firing mechanism of his personal sidearm when his men had first captured her. A last desperate act of sabotage. The salt had mixed with the grease, turning it into a thick, binding paste. The firing pin was cemented in place. Jonas looked at the useless gun. He looked at me. And then the night exploded with sound. A deep, deafening honk from a ship in the harbor. It was answered by another, from the north, and a third, from the south. The Orpheus signal. The perimeter was closed. The trap was sprung. Jonas knew it. He looked at the sea, now full of his enemies. He looked at the road, now blocked by Emilio's cars. He looked at me. He backed away, toward a dark, narrow cleft in the rock I had not seen. A set of crumbling service stairs cut into the cliff face. "This is not the end," he snarled, his voice almost lost in the wind. "This ends on the roof, not the coast, on the roof." And he vanished into the blackness. The penthouse was quiet again, but the silence was different. It was not the cold, sterile silence of a fortress. It was the settled quiet of a hospital room after the fever breaks. Maya sat in a high-backed chair, her face pale and etched with pain, but her eyes were clear. The medic had finished securing her arm in a heavy black sling, a dislocated shoulder. He had diagnosed and 3 cracked ribs, a small price for falling off a cliff. When the medic left, she waved me over with her good hand. I knelt beside her chair. Emilio was across the room, his back to us, staring out the newly opened shutters at the pale, gray line of dawn. He was on the phone, his voice a low, lethal murmur, organizing the hunt for Rook. Maya's good hand found mine and gripped it. Her skin was cold, but her grip was like a steel trap. "You reacted," she said, her voice strained. "On the overlook. You saw the leverage point, the rope. You saved us." "You saved yourself," I whispered. "The gun, the grease." A small, tight smile touched her lips. "We make a good team." She squeezed my hand, her eyes locking on mine. "I was wrong about you. Lila, in the car, I called you a liability. I was wrong. You are not weak. You are not the protected." She took a ragged breath. "You are the one who makes them afraid. You are the one who sees the move. They do not. Never let anyone, not even him." She glanced at Emilio's rigid back. "Make you forget that." She released my hand and used it to push herself to her feet, wincing. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need actual painkillers, and I need to find the man who sent that photograph." She walked out, leaving me alone with him. The sky was turning from gray to a soft, pearlescent pink. The city lights were winking out, one by one. Emilio finished his call and stood in silence, watching the sun come up. He finally turned to face me. He looked older than he had 2 days ago. The lines around his eyes were deeper. "I apologize," he said. The words were so unexpected, I just stared. For what? For the hearing, for you being exposed. I should have anticipated Stone's move. I should have found a way to present the evidence without you. I put you in that room. I stood up from the sofa. The adrenaline was long gone, leaving only a deep, profound ache in my bones, but my mind was sharp. "No," I said, my voice clear in the quiet room. "You did not put me anywhere, Emilio. I walked out from behind that screen. That was my choice." He started to speak, but I held up a hand. "You want to know the truth? You did the one thing no one else has ever done. You could have stopped me. You could have had Maya drag me out of that room. You could have stood in front of me and silenced me for my own protection." I took a step closer. "But you did not. You were afraid. I could see it. But you still let me choose. You respected it. Do not apologize for that, ever." His eyes searched mine, seeing the final, absolute death of the terrified waitress from the Harbor Light Diner. A long silence stretched between us. It was not the silence of strategy or fear. It was the silence of a new beginning. "I'm starving," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. A small, startled laugh escaped him. It was the first time I had heard the sound. Me too. We drifted into the black marble kitchen, not as a boss and his asset, but as two people who had survived a shipwreck. The refrigerator was nearly empty, stocked for tactical efficiency, not for life, but there were eggs. There was a head of garlic. There was a bottle of dark, green olive oil, and a box of pasta. We did not speak. I filled a pot with water and set it on the massive gas stove. The whoosh of the blue flame was a comforting sound. He found a knife and a cutting board. I leaned against the counter, watching him. He began to chop the garlic. His hands, which I had seen signal a sniper, which had gripped Maya's jacket on the edge of the abyss, were now moving with a steady, practiced rhythm. The thwack, thwack, thwack of the blade on the wood was the most normal, calming sound in the world. Each slice was a stitch. Each sound was a moment of peace. These small, ordinary motions. They were how you sewed the extraordinary wounds back together. He stopped chopping. Though his hand remained on the knife, he was staring at the small pile of minced garlic. "The thing I fear most," he said, his voice so low I barely heard him. He was not looking at me. "It is not Jonas Rook. It is not losing the syndicate. It is not prison." He looked up, and his eyes were raw, stripped of all their armor. "My greatest fear is that I will do to you exactly what I was trained to do, that I will take you, this light, and I will lock it in a penthouse, that I will put you behind me and stand in front of you and protect you so fiercely that the woman who walked out from behind that screen ceases to exist." He took a sharp breath. "That I will turn you into my shadow, and that, I realized, would be a far greater crime than anything Stone ever committed." My heart ached. He was afraid of his own power, of his own nature. He was afraid of destroying the very thing he had come to. What respect admire? I closed the 2 feet of distance between us. I placed my hand flat on his chest, over his heart. It was beating, a strong, steady drum beneath my palm. "Emilio," I said, waiting until his eyes met mine, "I spent my entire life as a shadow. I am done hiding. I am tired of being protected." I pressed my hand against his chest. "I do not need you to stand in front of me. I need you to stand beside me. I need my partner, not my jailer." He covered my hand with his thumb finding the pulse in my wrist. He searched my face, looking for any trace of doubt. He found none. He gave a sharp, definitive nod. "Beside you." The spell was broken by the buzz of the penthouse intercom. Emilio answered it. It was Tito. He came in a minute later, looking rested. He was holding a perfectly pressed, folded garment, the charcoal cashmere coat. "Tito," Emilio said, surprised. "It was in the back of the van, under a blanket," Tito said, holding it out. "I had the hotel laundry service. Well, I insisted." Emilio took it, the coat that had started it all. It looked innocent now, just a piece of expensive fabric. "It is your coat, Mr. DeCarlo," Tito said, a small smile playing on his lips. "But I am afraid. It still smells a little bit like the diner kitchen, like old coffee and fried onions, the smell of my kitchen. It does not come out so easily." He winked at me. "I think it is good. A little bit of the real world stuck to it." Emilio looked at the coat, then at me, and a faint smile touched his own lips. "Thank you, Tito. I will consider it an improvement." As Tito left, Maya returned. Her face was grim, the momentary peace shattered. "We have a problem," she said, tapping her tablet. "Stone is suspended. Yes, the hearing was a disaster for him, but he's not finished. He still has allies on the commission, deep ones, the ones who did not show their faces." "The friend of the sparrow," I said. "Exactly," Maya nodded. "They just called an emergency, secret session for this afternoon. They are moving to block the appointment of a special prosecutor. They are citing your testimony, sir, and the questionable nature of the evidence. They are going to bury it. They are going to vote to seal the file permanently." Emilio's face went hard. "They cut the head off. Now the body is trying to crawl back underground." "So we stop it from crawling," I said. They both looked at me. The plan formed in my mind, clean and sharp, a pure sparrow move. "They want to do it in secret," I said. "We make it public. We take away the shadows, that USB drive. It is full of your sources, Emilio, full of the audio file that points to Stone, but it is also full of the raw data, the Kestrel ledgers, the shipping manifests, the tonnage discrepancies, the arithmetic." Emilio's eyes lit with a cold fire. He saw it. A clean ledger. "We give it to the press," I said, my voice gaining strength. "Not the big networks. We give it to the Port Herald, the independent city blog, the one every dock worker and every lawyer and every cop reads. We give them the raw, undeniable proof of the theft, not the bribe, not the murder, just the money. We show the city that the commission has been letting Kestrel bleed the port dry for years. We make it public, right now. When they go to their secret meeting," I finished, "their phones will be blowing up. They will not be able to bury it. They will be forced to appoint a prosecutor, just to save their own skins from the scandal. We force their hand." Emilio was very still. This was not his way. This was burning the ships. "That is a one-way move, Lila," he said softly. "If we release that data, it is gone. We cannot use it as leverage. We cannot make deals. We cannot control the outcome. It means we burn the bridge behind us." He looked at me, his meaning clear. "It means I can never go back to the old way. We go public, for good." "Let's burn it," I said. He stared at me, a long, assessing look. Then, for the first time, he smiled, a real smile. It transformed his face. He did not say yes. He did not need to. He stepped forward, and his arms went around me, pulling me against his chest. It was not the desperate, frantic kiss on the balcony. This was something else. It was a commitment. It was solid. My arms wrapped around his neck, my fingers lacing in his hair, holding him. His hand came up to cup the back of my head, holding me to him. We just stood there, in the kitchen, breathing together. His hand stroked my back, a slow, reassuring, possessive circle. My own hand rested on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. We were a team. We had a plan. The pasta water was boiling over, hissing on the hot stove. Neither of us moved. The roof of the breakwater tower was Jonas Rook's idea of a throne room. It was 50 stories above the harbor, and the wind up here was not a breeze. It was a physical assault. It ripped and tore, snapping the huge Kestrel flags mounted on the parapets like gunshots. He called this his goodbye. Below, The street was not a battleground. It was a theater. Emilio's men, the Orpheus Syndicate, had formed a hard perimeter, but they were not the audience. The audience, the real weapon, was the small cluster of vans from the Port Herald, the independent press we had leaked the data to. They were parked right at the front, their satellite dishes aimed at the sky. Ready. Jonas was standing near the edge, his face lit by the harsh, blue-white light of a portable camera. He was streaming, broadcasting his own siege. "You see this?" he roared into the lens, his voice tinny and distorted by the wind. "Emilio DiCarlo, the civilized boss, he has the cops bought. He has the commission bought, and now he is sending his private army to execute me. This is his justice. This is the real Orpheus." He was painting Emilio as the villain, trying to goad him into a violent act that the whole city could watch. What Jonas did not know was that our bomb had already gone off. At the exact second his stream went live, Maya, from a control center 2 blocks away, gave the final authorization. The Port Herald's website homepage changed. The breakwater ledgers, how Commissioner Stone and Kestrel bled the port dry. It was all there, the clean ledger, every falsified manifest, every diverted dollar, every single transfer into the Blue Current Fund. The effect was immediate. Jonas's phone, the one he was using for his own broadcast, suddenly rang. He looked at it, confused, angry at the interruption. He barked, "What?" The voice on the other end was pure, high-pitched panic. It was Commissioner Stone. "Jonas, what are you doing? They know it's everywhere. The ledgers, the fund. You have to stop. Do not drag me down with you. Do not." Jonas realized he was on speaker, that his live stream was now broadcasting Stone's frantic, self-incriminating confession to the entire city. He smashed the phone against the brick, but it was too late. Down at the commission headquarters, the secret vote was underway. But as Stone's voice hit the web, the phones of every commissioner in that room began to vibrate off the tables. They were not just receiving calls. They were receiving the Port Herald link. The secret vote was dead. They had no choice. To save themselves, they had to go public. They had to vote immediately. To remove Stone and authorize the prosecutor. The game was over. Jonas knew it, too. He looked at the useless camera, at the city below that now saw him as a thief, and his mind just broke. All the strategy, all the games, evaporated. All that was left was the brute. He moved so fast I did not even see it. He lunged at me. He grabbed me, spinning me around, his arm clamped across my throat. He dragged me toward the camera, toward the edge. He grabbed a heavy-duty anchor cable from a window washing rig, wrapping it around my waist, binding me to him. He pressed the cold, flat blade of a combat knife to my throat. "DiCarlo!" he screamed, his voice raw with animal fury, dragging me into the camera's view. "Your move! The smart move is to let her go. She's just a waitress. You win, but you do not get her." He pressed the blade. "The boss chooses. Do you save the girl, or do you save your perfect? Clean empire. Choose." Emilio did not hesitate. He stepped out of the stairwell shadows into the harsh light, his hands raised, palms forward. "You're right, Jonas, it is a choice." He was walking toward us, calmly, but the empire is just business. She. He locked his eyes on mine, and in them, I saw no fear, only that same promise from the balcony, is everything. He stopped, 20 feet away. "Let her go. Take me. I am the one you want. I am the one who beat you. She is just a girl. Take me." Jonas laughed, a wild, broken sound. "You think I'm stupid? You walk over? Your men shoot me." "No men," Emilio said. "Just me. Look." He slowly unbuttoned his suit jacket, letting it fall open. He was unarmed. "You need to tie me up, fine." He turned and grabbed something from the hands of one of his men, the charcoal cashmere coat, my coat, his coat, the one Tito had returned. "Here," Emilio said. "Use this. It is strong. Tie me up. Just let her go." He threw the coat. It flew through the air, a dark shadow, landing at Jonas's feet. Jonas stared at the coat, then at Emilio. The trade was too good. He bent, his grip on my hair tightening, pulling my head back. He grabbed the coat, ready to throw it over Emilio's head, to bind him. The second his fingers touched the cashmere, it happened. The coat was not just a coat, it was Maya's genius. Woven into the shoulder seam was a tiny, low-frequency signal beacon. From a rooftop 3 blocks away, Maya, her good arm steadying a high-tech launcher, got the lock. "Signal acquired," she whispered. She did not fire a bullet. She fired a high-velocity, non-lethal foam projectile. It was silent, faster than the wind. It was aimed not at Jonas, but at the knife. The projectile hit, a dull, wet thwack. It was not foam, it was a polymer resin. On contact with the air and the metal, it expanded instantly, hardening into a solid, heavy mass of gray rock. The knife was encased. Jonas's hand, still gripping the handle, was trapped inside a solid, immovable block of hardened cement. He stared at his hand, his brain unable to process it. His hand was a rock. That was my second. I was still wrapped in the anchor cable. I did not try to run. I dropped my weight, using the leverage of the cable, and spun my hips. Just as Father Michael had taught me, I was the anchor. He was the weight. Jonas was already off balance. His arm weighed down. My move yanked him sideways. His feet slipped on the wet roof. He fell. He stumbled backward, past the safety line, over the parapet. He screamed, a short cut-off sound, as he vanished over the edge. But he did not fall. Emilio had not been standing still. The moment the foam hit, he had lunged. He caught him. Emilio was lying flat on the roof, his arm plunged into the abyss. His hand clamped around Jonas's wrist. He was holding his enemy, stopping him from falling to his death in front of a live camera. "Help me," Emilio grunted, his muscles straining. I scrambled, unwinding the cable, and grabbed Emilio's shoulder, anchoring him as he hauled the sputtering, terrified, and utterly defeated Jonas Rook back over the edge. The fight was gone. Jonas lay on the roof, breathing in ragged sobs, his hand still trapped in the gray polymer block. The doors to the stairwell burst open, but it was not Orpheus men. It was the city port authority, the real, uniformed cops. "He is all yours, officers," Emilio said, getting to his feet and brushing the gravel from his suit. The power of the brawl had lost. The power of principle, even a complicated principle, had won. As they cuffed Jonas and led him away, Maya's voice came over Emilio's earpiece. "It's done. The commission just voted. Unanimous. Stone is out. Full special prosecutor authorized. They are thanking Witness Alpha for her courage." The roof was finally quiet. Save for the wind, the cameras were off. The police were gone. It was just us. From the harbor below, a deep, 3-beat horn blast echoed up. A ferry, heading out for its first run of the morning. It was a victory salute. Emilio turned to me. The city was waking up behind him, the sky a brilliant, fiery pink. He looked at me, and the boss was gone. The strategist was gone. There was only the man. He reached out, not to grab me, but just to touch my face, his thumb brushing a smudge of dirt from my cheek. "No more coat," he said, his voice soft. "No more debt. No more ledgers." He stepped closer, his other hand finding my waist, gently pulling me to him. Just us, choosing each other every day. "Every day," I whispered. He kissed me. It was not the desperate, rain-soaked kiss on the balcony. It was not the hesitant, trusting kiss on the sofa. This was a promise. It was deep and slow and complete, filled with every ounce of terror and relief and hope we had shared. It tasted of salt and mourning, and a future I had never, ever believed I would have. My hands tangled in his hair. His arms held me like I was the only solid thing in the world. We stood there, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sunrise. Far below on the street, I saw 3 dark cars, the same fan formation from that first night, but they were not waiting. One by one, Their turn signals flashed, they pulled into traffic, and they drove away. The hunt was over. Thank you for listening to this story. I would love to connect with all of you. So please, comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and be sure to like this video. You can also show extra support by hitting that hype button, so this story can be heard by even more people.